Welcome to The Bridge, Your Health, Your Voice, the official podcast to the University of Maryland-Baltimore School of Pharmacy Patients Program. The Patients Program is the bridge between the community and researchers. This partnership is created to help researchers listen to the community's voice in order to build a bridge to an effective learning healthcare community. Here's your host, Paris Barnes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Bridge. My name is Paris, and I'm your host today. I am an African-American woman with red curly hair, and I'm wearing a green shirt. And today we have Trevor and Seantae Jackson. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and let them know what you're wearing today?
You bet. My name is Seantae Jackson. I'm a Caucasian woman wearing a black shirt and so thrilled to be here.
And I'm Trevor. I am a Caucasian male, and I'm wearing a gray shirt.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for being here. You all are seasoned professionals when it comes to the patients program. So it's always a pleasure to have you back with us. So I'm going to do an icebreaker. This is like my favorite part. I do icebreakers just to kind of warm us up for the conversation and kind of just to get the listeners tuned in. So I'll start with Trevor. What is a harmless conspiracy that you do or you refuse to believe in?
Well, when I thought about this, all I could think of is Bigfoot, that I believe in Bigfoot exists. Never seen him or anything, but I believe in that. But then I actually Googled the harmless conspiracies, and there was one I really grabbed my attention, and that's that Trader Joe's uses or builds specifically small parking lots so they seem like they're busy, even though there's so many, so then people like, oh, they're busy, it must be good. But which I always thought that if I started a restaurant or something like that, I would have all my buddies park their cars out front because then it would look busy and then people would come in. So I totally believe in that.
You're 100% right. I swear. I made a TikTok like a couple months back about this. And I'm like, I've been to different Trader Joe's in different states, and all of them have the worst parking lots on earth. So I do agree. This is a good conspiracy that I might be able to get behind. All right, let's see. Shantae, what is a skill that you have that would never make it onto your resume?
That's a hard one. Probably that I used to do a lot of painting for fun. And the thing that I did that was kind of unique is I would paint a song. So it turn something that was audio into visual. And so I would have people request a song that they loved, or it was their wedding song or whatever, and a few colors. And then I'd do an abstract painting interpretation of that song.
That's brilliant. That's like, what is that called? I want to say it's called like synesthesia or something like that. I think like artists like Pharrell have it, where they kind of see colors instead of music notes. That's amazing. That needs to go
Yes.
on a resume. I disagree. Put it
It
on
could go, I
there. This is a
guess.
good life skill that nobody else has. Put it on there.
All right. It's on there now.
See, perfect. All right. And last one, either of you can go or both of you can go. What's your go-to comfort TV show or movie?
I have one for sure. My family knows this, but I love Hallmark. I love that everything ends happily. I love that I kind of know what's going to happen. It's like it takes just enough of my attention to relax, but not so much that I can't, function or whatever. So I know it's cheesy, but Hallmark's totally my thing.
Okay, so you're the Hallmark Christmas movie person.
Oh my gosh, like there's so many, and there's always new ones every holiday and season. I'm like, great, I know what's gonna happen.
They all
Boy
have the
meets
same plot.
girl. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of ridiculous how much
I
I
love
know is
it.
what's gonna happen, but that's my guilty pleasure.
I love it. I love it. What about you, Trevor?
Well, the show that I love the most, I haven't watched in a while, that River Runs Through It was one of my favorite shows growing up, mainly because I loved being outdoors and fly fishing. But if I'm not in that mood, it would be probably like Marvel movies or Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh
So
yeah.
not like a nerd or geek. I just like the action. That's not too bad.
Oh, nerd life is great. I'm totally a nerd. Like, it's totally fine to be a nerd. Nerd life is great. I like that kind of stuff. I'm really looking forward to House of Dragons coming out in a few weeks. So nerd stuff is good.
As you can
All
see,
right.
opposites attract, as I liked this
Exactly.
calm fairy tale and he likes the action drama killing, so it works.
It's perfect. I couldn't think of a better thing. Oh goodness. All right, so I'm going to introduce our listeners to what Copod is. I think that they've heard a little bit about it from us before, but CoPod is a PCORI-funded project that are going to help patients, families, caregivers, and individuals with broader in the health community who are not researchers to engage in partners in future patient-centered clinical effectiveness research. That's a mouthful. And these individuals may have expertise in or connection to lived experience with chronic pain, which is our topic. So that was a big mouthful. That is the direct description from PCORI, but if we want to summarize it and dress it up and make it sound really good, Shantae, can you dress it up for us and make it sound pretty easy?
I think for me, essentially, Copod is just getting information out to folks that are really looking to manage their pain better and have a better avenue that they can access all of the time so that they can recognize what research has been done already on this topic and what has worked and what hasn't worked and how they can apply it for themselves in a really easy way.
That was perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right. So would either of you, either one wants to start? I'll say Trevor. Can you kind of share a little bit about yourself as well as your role in the council for this new podcast that we're going to be doing?
With the patients program, it's been probably a couple years that we were invited to come back. It was at the end of a study, and my orthopedic surgeon actually was one of the physicians on board, and he wanted us to go back to Maryland and kind of get our feet wet and see what it's about because he thought would be a good fit for the patient perspective. And that's the role that I personally feel is I was a patient. I deal with chronic pain on a daily basis. We were in a catastrophic car accident about 5 years ago, and I was critically injured in a lot of places. So it's something that I deal with every day. So it's close to my heart. But also giving the patient perspective is really important to me. When we were back there a couple of years ago, we were talking with doctors and surgeons, and just like things that would pop in my head that I would suggest or just talk about, they were just blown away by my perspective because that's medical field. They just think in a certain way. I mean, no, not to discredit them at all. They are so good at what they do, but they're so focused on the medical part that they don't get the emotional part as much. I'm not saying that all doctors are that way, but some of the stuff that I would say that was just like common to me, they just were like, oh yeah, we never thought about that. So for me, it's really important to give that perspective that just patients and people just in their ordinary day life that are not surgeons or doctors, that they can get that perspective in their research.
That's like the basis of our program, and really what we do here is because of exactly what you said. A lot of the time the patient voice is really left out of quite a bit of the things we do. And it is the doctor's jobs, and they're moving as fast as they can and they're doing what they can. But sometimes that little tidbit of what we know goes missing. And that little tidbit is the big picture that really can change quite a bit of the outcome of everything. So having you here is a blessing to us. We're grateful for your perspective, and we're so happy to have you and to continue to work with you.
No, thank you. Good to be here.
And Shantae, what is your role on the council? Yours is a little different.
Mine's slightly different. I am lucky enough to be a co-lead. Essentially, I get to use my natural organizational skills and being able to look through things, line by line, those types of things, and help lead our council through some of these conversations. I also have a patient perspective and a caregiver perspective since I was also in this car wreck, and then also a caregiver for my loved ones that were in this car wreck. But my role with Copod is that I get to co-lead, and that essentially means that I get to help, lead some of the conversations and really lean into these amazing patient perspectives that we have and that are on our council so that we can put those things together and put them forth in a way that's really helpful for moving forward with our project.
It's going to be so good, y'all. So tune in. It's going to come soon. And we can't wait to introduce you to the whole slew of podcasts that are going to come along with this series. So Trevor, how are we going to just make sure that the patient voice is embedded throughout the podcast? And you're telling me because I'm hosting it, so I want to know how you're planning on doing it.
Yeah, that's a good question. This whole experience that we've had, and I think on a past podcast with you, we mentioned that we have a nonprofit that we help patients that have been in motor vehicle wrecks or accidents, and it's everyone's different and has a different perspective. And it's even with our experience, people kind of just put that into a box and just say, "Oh, you were in a car crash, like this is how it is," or "I was in a car crash once," and it's so different. And like for me personally, I my recovery looked very different than a lot of other people's recovery, and just that alone is just it just hits so many points that I think you just need to value the different perspective. And I've learned a lot through talking with other people and that have been involved in car wrecks or similar situations. And we can all help each other, I think is the biggest thing, that you can grab some help from somebody's perspective, even though it's not the same as yours, that you can kind of relate and then also maybe shift your perspective just a little bit. That will be helpful.
Yeah. What about you, Shantae? Yeah.
I think the really cool thing about the patients program in general, and especially COPOD, is that we are going to go into the community. And so, as Trevor is speaking to the differences and in how his recovery journey was different than mine or other people that we know, that's how it is for all of us. And so, the really, really special and amazing thing about this upcoming project is that we are going to go into the community and we're actually going to ask for individual voices. It won't just be our council, it will be a whole bunch of you sharing what it is that was important to you or that you struggle with still today, so that we can make sure that lots of different people's voices are heard and that we're approaching it in a way that can be used by multiple people, not just one type of patient, but all the different types and all the different journeys. And I think that that's a really unique thing, is that we will get to go into the community and hear all of the voices. It's not just about one person or one journey or one path, but multiple, and hopefully more than just a few. We'll be tapping into multiple types of communities as well so that we can hear all of those voices.
I think what you said is brilliant. And just to remind you all, the topic is chronic pain. And chronic pain is a really big umbrella. There's a lot of different ways a person can experience this, or there's a lot of different ways the body could have adjusted to this. So when we think about this topic, this is really close to you. It's really close to home for you because it's something that you're actually living with each and every day. And I think it will be so important and just brilliant to be able to hear the voices of other individuals to kind of understand what was the basis of theirs or how are they coping with it. And I think when you all will get in a room with those people in the community, you'll kind of be able to feed off of each other and maybe take tips and trips from each other and things like that that maybe you didn't think of through the process. And I think that's the beauty of this, is that we're all honestly in this to learn from each other, and we recognize that everybody's experience might be just a little bit different with this chronic pain thing.
Absolutely. I think that's the joy of these projects, is there's a sense of community that comes as far as voices being heard, right? We're hearing from, researchers and doctors and also patients, but then also there's a sense of community that comes from being in a room together. Me being in a room with somebody else that can relate to me, there's nothing like that. And so the sense of community that comes from not just the work that we're doing, but how we're doing it becomes this really beautiful thing of community in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think that's the part that I'm looking forward to the most. Just kind of hearing everybody's story, just seeing where they are, and just really learning from them. And taking heed to their stories, and just kind of being sensitive that this is just so different for everyone, and that in this project we really are trying to capture the essence of how everyone's feeling. And it's going to be a challenge for me even as a host, because I'm going to want to sit here and tell you everybody's story because I'm going to think all of them are brilliant. But it's going to be a good time. It's going to be very interesting for me personally to kind of learn through everybody's process. All right. So I'm going to shift a little bit, kind of just to talk about your own journey with chronic pain in the health system. Um, was there a certain experience or a time where you felt that navigating the health system was different considering your accident or your lived experience?
It was hard at the beginning because I think the unknown with me and like where I was going to be, and that was really hard at the beginning, that whether I'd survive or not. And then it just totally shifted into this recovery mode, and it was almost immediate. It was the doctors that I had were basically just trying to keep me alive, and then when they realized I was going to survive, it was like, okay, move on with your life. And nobody gives you a book of what that looks like. And for me, it was in a wheelchair, and it was this long road of recovery and physical therapy. And I think I'm not saying this in a prideful way, but I've got this get up and go after it kind of attitude. And I know a lot of people are not that way, because I was doing physical therapy like 3 to 4 days a week, and I would see people come in and they would just have the hardest time just with the smallest things, or the pain was too much. And my, again, not in a prideful way, but my superhuman power is pain tolerance. And I've always been that way since I was little. So I'm glad that I was the one that was hurt the most in our wreck, but also I understand that it's all relative. That it's even though I feel like I can push through and get through, I realize that other people can't, and it's something you can't just be like, I don't know, the old additive, like, you're gonna be fine, just get over it. Like, sometimes you can't, and that's why this is close to my heart, the whole chronic pain, because I see people that are in chronic pain, and it's hard to say, oh, if I was feeling that, then I would be okay, or I couldn't imagine feeling that much. That it affects a lot of people, and it's different for everybody. And for me, that looked like, I was the weird one. I left the hospital with two broken legs. With They didn't give me any painkillers when I left the hospital, and because I was okay. They were going off what I was saying. They're like, how are you feeling? Like, I feel okay. Like, I'm in pain, but I can deal with it. And sometimes I wish I would have had, but I learned a lot through a lot of different ways how to deal with chronic pain. And I know maybe this isn't the right answer to your question, but it's when it shifted for me was just like, this is something I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life, and I have to find ways to deal with it besides just medication. And it's been a long journey, and it's been a long mental journey, but for me, I think it was when I knew this was just kind of how it's going to be, and I kind of had to accept it. And it's hard to know that your life's going to be filled with pain for the rest of your life, but also it's your life, and you kind of need to live it too and move on.
No, you answered it exactly how you were supposed to. And thank you for your honesty and transparency in that, because what I heard a lot of you saying is I had to accept it. Um, I'm grateful it happened to me and not the other members of my family or my babies. And what a lot of listeners don't know is they have kids. And their children were heavily affected by this as well. So the fact that even through all this, dad is still being a dad and putting on his dad super cape and saying, "Look, I took one for the team for my kids." Um, that touched me. As a mom, that really touched me. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that that's not something that anybody thinks about when they think about themselves in that situation. You were in a situation and you said, "Look, I can tolerate the pain, but is everybody else okay?" Um, so for you, it was more of a mental kind of thing. You had to kind of go against your own, your own thoughts and things like that because your body, you were confident that your body can do this, but it changed to a whole mental state for you. Wow. Shantae, how do you like um
I
wow.
can't follow that.
Yeah, I'm like, and the thing is, I don't want you to even attempt to follow it, but it's like,
I think the thing for me, it
wow.
makes me really emotional too. And he's expressed this to me before that, he doesn't remember a lot of what happened right in the moment, but he has mentioned, if I was aware enough, I definitely tried to take the brunt on purpose. I knew he was
Yes,
selfless, but like to be able, I know. It's yeah, I'm a really lucky girl and wife and mom. And it's hard. It's really hard to see somebody that you love hurt all the time. And that's why this is so important to us. I have pain, but it's nothing like his. And it's this work is important. It's important because even if one other person is out there, with chronic pain day in and day out, trying to do their best just to provide for their family or to show up to their kids' ball game or, whatever it may be, we understand that. That is our life. That is literally what we live 24/7 is how do we move forward with this, right? We're not trying to bounce back to anything. We've gained way too much knowledge and experience and gratitude to be able to bounce back. We're trying to move forward with it. And what a beautiful thing to be able to share that with other people and to be in groups and communities of other people who live this as well in a different way and a different world. Their family might look different or whatever. It doesn't matter. They're still doing the same thing. And we really do passionately care. I have a lump in my throat because of how much I feel this. We get it. And I think what he just described just really just proved that we understand and we're here for it. We're here for it with anybody else that is ready to have somebody with them.
I really hope that as we record these podcasts in the future, that I do you justice. I really hope that I fully represent um, people who are dealing with chronic pain in the way that you just explained that to me, because that totally gave me an entirely different understanding of how you live each day. So I pray that when I record these in the future that I do you justice and I make you all proud. So that way you didn't share your story in vain, and that it really is important to share your story because it is just that serious. It is important for people to hear where you were and where you are now. So I just appreciate y'all being here and sharing your story and contributing to the work that we plan to continue to do even beyond this project. All right. So I got my final questions for you. Thank you so much again for being here and making me cry on camera. If you have any advice for any of our listeners that have lived experience or just are trying to get through the day, any advice that you would give any of our listeners today?
I think at the beginning, when I just realized that my life would be different and look different, especially in the acute recovery stage, I would try to find things to look forward to, like in my week. Then that would help. And when I really started to do the hard physical therapy that wasn't very fun, one of our sons made the high school soccer team, and it was twice a week. And I always look forward to his games because I felt like they were just a couple days apart. I could make it that far, and we're a big soccer family, and we like to watch soccer. So I would look, oh, there's a soccer game on Saturday. That's something that I would look forward to, and I that just gave me a reason to keep going, I guess, and just know that I could enjoy something later. And it was really important to me to be able to know, okay, I got that to look forward to or that to look forward to, instead of just being caught in this endless loop of the day, oh, this day's so hard. I could, even though nothing good in the calendar was happening today, I could look forward to tomorrow or the weekend and that really helped and gave me not really purpose because I didn't really have things that I was actively doing at the moment, but it gave me something to look forward to that made the days not seem so heavy. The other thing that I would really say is it was really hard for me to do at the beginning, but look at how far you've come, even if it is like a few days. And when I was in the hospital, my first questions was, will I be able to walk in and when will that happen? And I was told you probably will, and 6 to 9 months is probably about the time frame when you can start to walk. And then at a follow-up appointment about 2 months later after a wreck, my orthopedic surgeon told me I could start walking, like try and walk. And that was exciting, but also really hard because I could barely walk, around the room with a walker and slow steps at a time. And if I looked back, because I was actually a really active runner before the accident, I was running like 6 miles a day average. And that was probably the reason why I could start walking in 2 months. But if I compared how it was to what I was doing, it was very hard and it was very dark. And I had to say, well, before you didn't know if you'd be able to walk, and then you give you the chance to walk, like, and then just take it little by little, be like, well, I can only walk around the room last week, and now I could go, I could walk to the mailbox. And then I finally got to where I was walking around our little circle, which is a quarter mile. I measured it one day just to know how far it was, and it took me about as long as it took me to run a mile before to get around that little circle with a walker. But it would give me something to, not to compare, but I could see the increments of how I was improving. And that was really important for me, even though they were small and I had a really hard time. I'm not saying I did it perfectly, but I would just look and be like, well, compared to how I was, I'm so far away. But then Seantae would always remind me, well, look where you were to where you are now. And I still do that. Like, I'm still on that improving. And if you compare me to last year, like, I've still got improvement from last year, which helps. Instead of looking at how I was before the wreck to now, it's how I can just compare. It's like a fresh start, starting there till now.
Wow. Thank you so much. Wow. Well, thank you both for being here today. I'm really excited about the upcoming podcasts that have things to do with Copod. If our listeners want to follow along with your journey or find you on social media, do you have a social media account that our individuals can follow you on?
Yeah, you bet. So our nonprofit is called Sandal Blue Foundation. So you can find us at Sandal Blue Foundation on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. We have some really exciting resources coming out this year. So definitely check that out. And then I also have an Instagram page that's Seantae Jackson Perspectives. And I talk all about life after medical trauma and some tips and tricks that I've figured out along the way, and just to help keep you hopeful and know that there's, light to be had and there's ways to get there. So we're definitely with you along this path.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Bridge Podcast. To learn more about the Patience Program, visit our website at www.patience.umaryland.edu.